Anakin.
Hello there everyone, this is going to be my full Obi Wan Kenobi Episode 2 video. This is where the fun begins, because we finally saw Hayden Christensen come back as Darth Vader Anakin Skywalker.
This is where the fun begins.
There's a whole bunch of Easter eggs, I'll explain what's going on with him in the timeline, so if you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the episodes. I will be doing videos for all the episodes, and really quick shout out to my friends at Raid Shadow Legends who asked to sponsor this video. Raid Shadow Legends is one of the biggest mobile games in the world right now that's totally free to play. That's right, it's free. They wanted me to tell you about some of their legendary champions this month, like Ithos of the High Elves and Cardiel of the Sacred Order. Ithos is a crit monster. He has a double primary attack that will always crit, and he's amazing for campaign farming. Cardiel is more of a specialist who can raise the entire team's crit rating and crit damage. And there's a ton happening in Raid this month with some new champions, an update to Tag Arena, and a full schedule for special events and tournaments. But here's the main event. Raid's currently running a special Deliana Chase event where you can get your hands on the amazing Deliana, a brand new legendary champion from the High Elves faction, just by logging in. All you have to do is log in and play Raid for 7 days between now and July 20th and you'll get Deliana for free. She's one of the strongest support champions in the entire game and can help carry your team past many of Raid's tougher challenges, so you don't want to miss her. Once you're in the game, new players can enter the promo code MyDeliana to get your hands on everything. This is the best time to get started in Raid, and if you use my link in the description below or scan the QR code right here that I'll put on screen in the video, new players will get a free starter pack worth almost $40 to kickstart your game. We're talking free champions, Misericord, Tiger Soul, Romero, 10 Magic XP Brew, 10 Force XP Brew, and 10 Spirit XP Brew. All that free stuff you can find in your inbox in the upper right-hand corner for the next 30 days. So be sure to check it out. But careful for spoilers from Obi Wan Kenobi Episode 2. If you haven't seen the episode yet, we'll be talking about everything.
I don't know if I'm getting into spoiler territory here. Can I say anything that possibly gets into spoiler territory here?
But just starting at the beginning of the episode, the actual opening shot is of Obi Wan Kenobi's ship landing on this new casino-looking planet Daiyu. It's meant to be kind of like the space version of Hong Kong. During this episode, he also calls again for Master Qui-Gon Jinn's help, making me think again that he will show up in a cameo scene eventually. They also reveal our next big celebrity cameo. It's Temuera Morrison coming back, but as a cameo scene for a clone trooper down on his luck, busking for change on the street as regular stormtroopers walk by on the street. Just meant to show you that during this part of the timeline, they were slowly phasing out all the clones, they were slowly dying off. It wasn't until closer to the events of Rogue One that most of the clones had died out. Not all of them, but most of the clones. I'm still kind of expecting Temuera Morrison to come back as Rex during the Ahsoka live-action series too. Like, he could come back as many clones as you want him to. They set up the whole thing with him using the spice to throw off the attackers later in the episode by giving him that giant dose.
You want to buy some death sticks?
You don't want to sell me death sticks.
I don't want to sell you death sticks.
You want to go home and rethink your life.
I want to go home and rethink my life.
But the dealer also mentions Kessel Pure, Glitterstim, and Felucian. Felucia is a planet that shows up during the Clone Wars, and spice, just in general, has many, many different purposes and uses in the galaxy. Most people just think about it as a drug, though. But when people think about spice, they think about Kessel, they think about Han Solo. Solo, a Star Wars story, takes place later in this timeline. So as these episodes are happening, we haven't seen that stuff play out yet. The little kid winds up taking him to Haja, Kumail Nanjiani's character. They have this big funny scene with him pretending to be a Jedi and helping people escape planet, but also kind of stealing their money at the same time. He's meant to be like a scoundrel type character with a heart of gold, kind of like Han Solo. Like, he tells Obi Wan Kenobi, I helped these people, but I only took a little bit of their money, like their purse is a little bit lighter, that's all. They had this whole thing with Obi Wan Kenobi refusing to use his Jedi abilities though, not using his lightsaber, he uses a blaster, so uncivilized, like everybody just play the clip in their heads every time they see him punch somebody or pull out a blaster.
So uncivilized.
The whole idea, as he says to young Leia, is that he's trying to hide his abilities. The more he uses the Force openly, the more he outs himself. But most of this episode is meant to be a big call to action, like he is eventually forced to use the Force, literally, to save Leia's life. You notice when he's scoping out the drug lab too, he starts playing with his mustache and his beard, twiddling it the same way that you see him do in the prequels, which is also meant to be a mirror, like a parallel, trying to mimic Alec Guinness's Obi Wan Kenobi with the way he plays with his beard in the original trilogy. When he gets into the hallway fight here, this is a Zabrak just like Darth Maul, just from a different part of their race with a different color skin. He's still a Zabrak though. As far as they've said, Darth Maul isn't supposed to appear during this series, but he's alive in this part of the timeline in the middle of running his crime syndicate. Then the kidnappers reveal the trap that they set for him is all about Reva, the other Inquisitors, trying to get him. They make this big deal about Jedi bleeding, which I think is meant to be a reference to how hardcore this series is compared to the way they played his character during the prequels. Like, you don't actually see Obi Wan Kenobi bleed that much during the prequels, if at all. And the idea that, again, he's refusing to use his Jedi abilities, like they literally just take his lightsaber right off of him and punch him in the face. But then they try to play it against this funny joke about him trying to save Leia with her attacking him and then questioning the whole situation just to show you how smart, how precocious she is at this young age. Like, she could potentially save herself if things weren't quite so crazy. It's also meant to be evocative of the scene of Luke Skywalker trying to rescue her on the Death Star when she kind of took him to task and sassed him a little bit before they took off. Like, wait a minute, aren't you a little short for being a stormtrooper? Oh, you are here to save me. Okay, let's go. When they're trying to escape, the funny thing here is the cloak that he puts her in, this orange one, is meant to look just like the cloak that Padme wore when she was pretending to be one of her handmaidens during Phantom Menace. Later in the episode, when they're in the hangar bay, he also tells her, "You remind me of a friend that I used to have. No, she died a long time ago," just to say that she acts just like her mother did, that Padme did.
Nothing, you just remind me of someone. She was fearless too, and stubborn.
The Grand Inquisitor shows up with the other Inquisitors to punish Reva for overstepping and stealing an Imperial Senator's child. They're all very evil, but their alignment is lawful evil. They have a very clear sense of order. So like I said, evil eventually defeating itself. It sounds like the Inquisitors will take care of each other eventually, or somebody within the ranks of the Empire will help take care of them. Setting up this whole idea that she is too quote-unquote ambitious for her own good, and eventually that's going to wind up force choking her in the ass, like maybe Darth Vader himself will wind up killing her. When she explains why she chose Bail Organa, because she sensed this connection between him and Obi Wan Kenobi in the archives, she's talking about the Jedi archives and the amount of information they were able to steal from the Jedi before the Jedi Librarian and the other Jedi were able to destroy them. So they have some of the information contained in the Jedi Temple, but not everything. As Obi Wan Kenobi explains to young Leia during this episode, all the Inquisitors are basically former Jedi or former Padawans who are turned to the dark side and are now hunting their own, basically. Like they had that whole intro during episode 1 showing young Reva as a Padawan being trained during Order 66 while it was all going down, just to foreshadow her eventually being turned to the dark side, becoming an Inquisitor. For instance, the Grand Inquisitor actually used to be one of the Temple Guardians at the Jedi Temple on Coruscant. He was one of the people at Ahsoka Tano's trial, and he took a lot of that to heart and felt like the Jedi were actually leading him down the wrong path, so that by the time that Order 66 came along, he actually made the decision to turn to the dark side and help the Emperor, so that's when he became the Grand Inquisitor, effectively. When he tries to throw shade on Reva about how she came from the gutter and they only took her in basically to their ranks because of her Jedi abilities, they're just trying to reference that they basically took any Force sensitives they could find and twisted them to the dark side. It's also meant to dovetail with what you saw from Leia's cousins, like her cousins don't seemingly care about normal people as much as they should. The way that the other Inquisitors are very elitist and they don't care about less fortunate people. Like, oh, you come from the wrong side of the railroad tracks, the only reason we're letting you stay here is because you have some Force abilities. Also setting up a huge rivalry between the rest of them. You notice the picture that she circulates around the planet is of Obi-Wan during Revenge of the Sith because his beard is way more kempt. There are a couple of funny jokes that young Leia tells to Obi Wan Kenobi about how he looks so old. I think that's just meant to dovetail with why he looks so old during A New Hope in the Alec Guinness version. Because Ewan McGregor still looks almost the exact same, like he hasn't aged a day, but he's meant to look like Alec Guinness within a couple years time span, like not a lot of time goes by before A New Hope. So they're just joking about that when she's like, oh, you look old enough to be my grandfather. A lot of you asking about this assassin droid that you saw during the trailers. This isn't meant to be for Loam, it's just a similar type of droid, it's a brand new character though. When he tells young Leia that her father is a very old friend of his, he's not lying because both Bail Organa and Anakin Skywalker were good friends of his. And the whole thing with her running off on her own is just trying to show you how resourceful she is, trying to save herself, but also force Obi Wan Kenobi's hand and make him use his Jedi abilities. They also use a lot of this chase to show you some of Reva's Force abilities too. Kumail's Haja character winds up helping them out, pointing them towards this planet called Mapuzo. It's a planet in the mid-rim, because a lot of this takes place in and around the mid-rim. Then they have that funny scene with him trying to stall Reva, and her using her Force abilities to pull the information of Obi-Wan's whereabouts from his mind. They just want to show you that she does have some skills, like it's not all meant to be talk and bluster. They have the Grand Inquisitor kill Flea's character, R.I.P., with that double-bladed lightsaber. It works just like you saw during Star Wars Rebels with the hilt spinning around. Obi Wan Kenobi would probably have some funny things to say about that, criticizing it, like that seems like a flashy lightsaber hilt, you don't need it to spin around and do all those crazy things. Then this whole scene of Reva versus Obi Wan Kenobi with her stalking him, talking about his fear, betraying him, is meant to be a reference to Darth Vader stalking, hunting Luke Skywalker on the second Death Star during their big fight scene, just playing cat and mouse with him trying to get inside his head. She also references Darth Vader verbally and Anakin Skywalker for the first time in the series to Obi Wan Kenobi, and it's meant to be this huge WTF moment the way they play it, like a big reaction on his part, because previously he had thought that Anakin Skywalker had died on Mustafar. That's why he freaks out so bad when he hears that. The other big reveal here, too, is that Reva and apparently the other Inquisitors know that Darth Vader used to be Anakin Skywalker, and within the Empire, that was meant to be a relatively big secret. Even Grand Moff Tarkin said that he truly did not know for certain whether or not Darth Vader used to be Anakin Skywalker. He suspected he was, but he wasn't sure about it. I think what they might be doing on this series is just saying that she knows that Anakin Skywalker used to be Darth Vader, probably because she was a Padawan and would have seen him at the Jedi Temple, and probably heard some rumors about it behind the scenes. Just because only a couple people within the Empire had actually confirmed the news that he'd become Darth Vader, doesn't mean that there weren't a lot of suspicions and a lot of rumors being passed around. The Inquisitors would have also had access to a lot of information that regular Imperials would not have had access to. But just to give you an idea for how private he was exactly, very few people actually ever saw him without the armor on. So like even though Reva talks about him being Anakin Skywalker, she probably has not seen him underneath the armor. Even though I think what they'll do is they'll show Obi Wan Kenobi eventually wounding him so that you see his helmet kind of broken the way that you see during Rebels, so that you can tell that it's Hayden Christensen's Anakin Skywalker underneath the armor. There would have been no reason for them to actually bring Hayden Christensen back if they weren't going to actually show him, Anakin Skywalker, underneath the armor. That's the reason you bring him back. She also tries to kill the Grand Inquisitor by running in through his chest with the lightsaber, but remember, the Grand Inquisitor doesn't die till the events of Star Wars Rebels way later in the timeline. So unless they're doing a big retcon here, I think that he'll wind up surviving this encounter, like he'll show up in later episodes. They'll reveal that he survived. Also, I think the whole existence of Darth Vader just in general being able to survive, even though it takes a lot of Sith technology to help him survive, is more evidence that the Grand Inquisitor could potentially survive this body shot.
There is still good in him.
He's more machine now than man.
But remember, the Inquisitors don't know anything about Leia or Luke's real identity, even though they know that Anakin Skywalker is Darth Vader. That scene of her twisting that knife in Obi Wan Kenobi metaphorically is also meant to be evocative of Darth Vader twisting the idea of Leia inside Luke. Oh, if you won't turn, then maybe your sister, that's right, your sister can be turned. Later in the transport, as he's still in shock, he actually says the name Anakin out loud, still freaking out over the reveal, as they cut to the shot of Darth Vader, Hayden Christensen himself, stewing in his back to tank, opening his eyes in his castle on Mustafar, in that same chamber that you saw during Rogue One. For those of you asking if Darth Vader was actually sensing Obi Wan Kenobi and Leia through the Force, he didn't actually learn that Leia was really his daughter or her true identity until the events of Return of the Jedi. He might have had suspicions early on, but he didn't actually confirm it until Return of the Jedi when he's having that conversation with Luke. So it is possible that he felt a disturbance in the Force because both of them were there, but he might not have totally understood what he was sensing through the Force. Like he was powerful, but he couldn't pinpoint Obi Wan Kenobi exactly where he was on that Daiyu planet leaving. If he'd been able to do that, he would have been able to sense him a long time ago, but a lot of that gets into Obi Wan Kenobi hiding his Force abilities, not using the Force. Grogu was doing the same thing as a way to hide himself from the Emperor and Darth Vader, the other Inquisitors. Like I said, I think they're only going to flirt with the idea that the Inquisitors might wind up finding out who Luke and Leia are, but they don't actually find out. Or maybe someone like Reva finds out, and then as she tries to turn good and help Obi Wan Kenobi, then Darth Vader kills her before she can reveal Leia's true identity or Luke's true identity. Somehow they will find a way to preserve the timeline so that he doesn't actually find out till later. So the whole idea is that in episode 3 next week, we'll probably see him back in the armor, way more actual Darth Vader scenes, and they'll probably have a couple encounters during the series. The way they talk about it, they won't just be one rematch, like they'll see each other, encounter each other a couple different times. Obi Wan Kenobi also almost used his lightsaber during episode 2. I think that they'll wait to have him actually use his lightsaber till later on when he actually confronts Darth Vader. But like I said, the whole thing this last 10 years is that Darth Vader has been trying to find Obi Wan Kenobi. That's been the biggest thing on his mind. They also revealed that he's slowly been trying to kill the Anakin Skywalker identity within himself. Like there is this small light of goodness within him as he's slowly trying to deepen his connection to the dark side of the Force. He's basically trying to extinguish everyone that Anakin Skywalker used to be within himself. But I think part of the idea with the title of Episode 4, A New Hope, is that something will happen in his encounters with Obi Wan Kenobi, his rematches, that will help lead that spark that will eventually bloom into something during Return of the Jedi, where he does turn good again and kill the Emperor, or try to kill the Emperor to save Luke Skywalker. But even though this episode just focuses on them going to Tatooine to try and find Obi Wan Kenobi and these other rogue Jedi, that's basically what they've been doing for the last 10 years. Even though he's mostly been looking for Obi Wan Kenobi, they've also been busy hunting many, many other Jedi survivors and other Force sensitives around the galaxy. Or a younger child like the one that the mother was trying to save that Haja helped during the episode, even though he took their money. They'll basically take that kid and then try to twist them to the dark side and raise them as another Inquisitor. So the whole idea is that if Haja had not saved them, even though he stole their money, that kid would wind up being just like the Grand Inquisitor, just like the fifth brother, just like Reva eventually. And if that wasn't clear, they actually did imply that that little kid was Force sensitive, and that was the reason why the mother was so willing to pay all that money to get them off a planet. But if you spotted any other big Easter eggs in the episode that I didn't talk about in the video, just write them below in the comments. My full Obi Wan Kenobi Episode 3 video will post next week just like normal. And big reminder, the normal episodes will air on Wednesdays instead of Fridays. They only did it special this week because Star Wars Celebration was happening this weekend. It'll go back to normal next week, and there are 6 episodes total. There were a bunch of other trailer videos like the Andor trailer. I did a video for it, so I'll post a link in the description below so you can watch that. But they also have the Mandalorian Season 3 trailer with a bunch of new footage. My full Easter egg video for that will post next on Saturday after they release the Mandalorian Season 3 trailer online. So that should happen pretty soon. Make sure you enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss that. Mando and Grogu going all the way back to the scene of the crime, going back to the planet Mandalore. A lot of the throne room of Mandalore that you see during Clone Wars at the very end of that series, during Season 7, shows up during the Mandalorian Season 3 trailer. Everyone click here for my full Obi Wan Kenobi Episode 1 video and Easter eggs, and click here for my Mandalorian Season 3 trailer video. I'll update the link as soon as I post that. Thank you so much for watching, everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.